White people are never, ever, ever going to give up white supremacy willingly. And that's because of the consequences that it would cause if they gave it up. And I'm not talking about mean words related to race. I'm not talking about hurt feelings. I'm talking about systemic white supremacy. White supremacy is all about control of resources. And these resources could be labor, they could be territory, they could be the resources on that territory, like oil or cobalt. It's also about power, legislative power, economic power, cultural power, or influence. And all these different facets of white supremacy have worked together for hundreds of years to put white people in the place they are now. White people are 14 or 15% of the world population. They control 60% of the wealth. In the United States, white people are 60% of the population and control 84.5% of the wealth. Even if you cut out the top 1%, the median household income for white families is $205,000 a year. For black people, it's $44,000 a year. Black people in the United States are about 16% of the population. In 1865, they held 0.5% of the wealth. In 2023, they held 4.2% of the wealth. Africa is 17% of the world's population, but holds less than 2% of global wealth. And I'm bringing up Africa because white supremacy is a global system. And to end global white supremacy, it's necessary to remove the control that white people have over territory that they've taken through white supremacy. A lot of people will conflate race with class, but it's not the same thing at all. In fact, for the territories that are under European occupation, the problem is a race issue, not a class issue primarily. From the perspective of the invaded, when Europeans invaded territory, is it only the rich Europeans that are the problem? No, it's the poor Europeans as well. Let's say you got rid of all the billionaires in Australia. From the Aboriginal Australians' point of view, is the problem over, or are the people that invaded his land still occupying his land? I feel like the reason why people say no war but class war is because the other types of oppression are systems that benefit them. Class is the way that white people are oppressed as a race. Racism is the way that benefits white people as a race. So it makes sense to me that they want to get rid of class instead of talking about race, or they think that getting rid of class will also get rid of race. If we say we want to end white supremacy, but white people will still have the things that they got through white supremacy, then what has really changed? When you stop a thief that is stealing from you, do you let the thief keep what he stole? Of course not. So let's talk about what would happen if the United States redistributed funds equally among the people in the United States in a vacuum. White median household income $205,000. Black median household income $44,000. If you redistribute the wealth, these people come down. The average is like $128,000. That would be a huge jump up for black people, but it would be a huge drop for white people. Then you have to consider how the United States gets that wealth in the first place. The United States is 4% of the population, holds 35% of the wealth. So the wealth that the United States has is based on stealing from other people. If you globally redistribute the wealth that the United States has 4% of the wealth. That's a drop of 30%. What would the United States look like then? If you don't want that to happen, then you have to allow the United States to keep doing the evil things that it does all around the world to maintain that percentage of wealth. It's also the same problem as earlier. If the white people took this land, but they get to retain it after white supremacy ends, then how is white supremacy really over? It's not. Also, if we say we want to end white supremacy, but after white supremacy ends, non-white people are still under the control of white people, either legislatively or economically or culturally, then white supremacy hasn't really ended. Now globally, Europeans are 16% of the population and hold 60% of the wealth. And we all know that they haven't got that amount of wealth by being nice to anybody else. They've stolen it. They've murdered hundreds of millions of people to get that. Through white supremacy, Europeans have direct territorial control over North America, parts of South America, New Zealand, Tasmania, Australia. They have neo-colonial control over some territories like South Korea, Ukraine, obviously, a number of African states. And through economic warfare or subterfuge, some Europeans control resources and territory outside of Europe, like the Swiss with their company Glencore, which controls 70% of the DRC's cobalt. or the French with their company Total Energies that dominates West African oil. Not to mention the Canadians, who are famous in non-Western media for human rights abuses related to mining camps. So what would happen if these Europeans, who have been pillaging the world for hundreds of years, lose control of the things that they've taken and lose the ability to profit off of the evil that they've done? Western Europe would turn into a cultural backwater. It wouldn't be anything. The basis of its wealth is the exploitation of non-European people. And if you remove that exploitation, there's nothing left. Now, some white people might say to me, well, why can't we all just work together? Why can't we have a global system where we all work together for the benefit of humanity? And that sounds reasonable. But I just don't see the incentive for the global majority to work together with the Europeans who have been oppressing them and contributing labor to the Europeans any longer. Like, how much more labor, how many more resources do you think the Europeans deserve after what they've done and are doing? If you were a slave and you just got freedom, would you work together with the slave master to make sure that he had a better quality of life? Of course not. If you've been exploited by billionaires and you win the class struggle, are you interested in making sure that the ex-billionaire has a fine standard of living? Of course not. The Europeans have worked together against what is good for the majority of humanity for hundreds of years. Therefore, what is bad for Europeans is good for the majority of humanity. Kwame Ture said something similar. He said, what is good for the master is bad for the slave, and what is bad for the master is good for the slave. It's the same thing here. And this is why Europeans will never give up white supremacy. It's the same reason the South would not get rid of slavery, because their economy and their way of life is completely dependent upon white supremacy. It's the basis of their culture. It's the unifying force for Europeans. Their economic system is based on it. Their cultures are based on it. Their religions are based on it. From the perspective of the white race, maintaining white supremacy is a matter of survival for them. And so the majority of the world has to stop acting like they're ever going to give it up. The truth is that it has to be combated. It has to be fought. The power has to be taken. And only through taking the power are things going to get better for humanity.